are artists a celebrity, and that being an artist is not a proper job, or that you're not an artist unless you actually make a living from your art. I don't know how many of you have been asked that question when you tell people that you're an artist,
that's so true.
or what you do. Some of these exist, some of them are rubbish, and all of them want dispelling. From my own experiences of working on public realm projects, I've noticed the varied ways that art and artists are perceived by the public. These reactions range from joy through to indifference right down to revulsion. And it's the indifference and revulsion that I'm interested in. I've seen people physically recoil when you tell them that something is art, that an art project is about to take place here, or that an artist is going to be involved with the project. On one hand, there seems to be the fear that you won't understand it. On the other, there's a prejudice against something which you thoroughly believe you don't need, that art is a waste of money. And I don't know if you know the Public in West Bromwich. It's a big art centre, it was projected to cost £38 million, ended up costing £52 million, most of which was Arts Council funded. And when it opened, the gallery wasn't finished. So they opened the building with a big fanfare, and then when you actually walk into the building and go to the reception and say, "What can I see?" there's nothing to see. So I think that didn't help. That when if you're living in West Brom and you go and see this new thing, you go in there and think, "Well, what was my money gone to pay for?" And it's gone to pay for a massive thing with nothing and you can look at it. So I think it was another year before it was. Might be wrong, but it was quite a while before it was actually open again properly with things to see. And a project that I did in West Bromwich, we spent some time walking around asking people about public art projects and regeneration projects. And one person's suggestion for the public was to turn it into a leisure centre, because they didn't have one of those, because they'd knocked that down as well.
Actually, if you told me that was a leisure centre, I would believe
it.
There's something rather sort of leisure centre-y about it.
I mean, now it's got things in it. It's very good. It's very active. There are people in there. There are kids running around. There's loads of things to play with. There's lots of interactive artworks in there, and they have nice shows. But just to open it with nothing was just silly.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do they pay their artists to have shows?
I don't know actually. The public. It wasn't the public that I was actually working with. Separate project. I don't know. Oh, there she is. I've gone too far. This creates a barrier for artists. We need to get more people on our side. Art has a value to society and culture, and not just a monetary value. There's a great clip on YouTube of the comedian Stuart Lee talking about the cuts to education, where he describes two interesting moments. The first is a memory from the 80s that has stuck with him of Margaret Thatcher on the television, visiting a college. It's just a bit of filler in a news story. She's meeting some students and she asks the girl, "What do you study?" And the girl replies, "Ancient Norse literature." And Thatcher says, "Oh, what a luxury." And Lee points out that this is a very telling response, because ancient Norse literature is not a particularly vocational subject. It probably won't make you loads of money, so therefore, in Thatcher's view, it has no value. The second moment is about two theatres that have had their funding cut. The theatre executive's response in their defence against this was to point out that they had developed certain shows that had transferred to the West End and gone on to make lots of money for the theatres and surrounding businesses by bringing in tourists. You would think this was a good argument, but Lee points out something I think is very interesting. That if you do this, you are pandering to their game, you're engaging them on their terms. You're admitting the work you produce has no value other than how much money it makes. What they should have done, Lee argues, is say that we put on for a week a bloke blowing into a balloon and dragging it around on the floor and making funny sounds, and that didn't transfer to the West End because it has no commercial future. But it is inherently worthwhile, and that's why it requires funding. And that's the bit that I like. Art has an intrinsic value in and of itself, which is valuable to society. It is inherently worthwhile. We need people who know about ancient Norse literature. We need people who do little scene experimental theatre that doesn't transfer to Shaftesbury Avenue. We need people who do creative things just because they want to do it, because they feel they have something to say. It has a trickle-down effect, and it's reciprocal. is responsible for popular culture, and popular culture in turn affects, for want of a better phrase, high culture. The two are not mutually exclusive, and I feel sometimes that the line between the two is incredibly blurred. There are two ends of a creative spectrum, many shades in between, and one end isn't more important than the other. I think we're in danger of allowing government policy to define the importance of art. What Thatcher said in that TV clip back in the 80s is very similar to the current cuts to arts education and funding. It implies that art, or at least a particular kind of art, is worthless, and the interest in and pursuit and study of such things is a luxury available only to those of the financial means. So what can be done? I think we need to subtly change the perception of art and artists, as mentioned in point 5 of the checklist, by having the work itself prove its worth and make a point about the value of art in general. I think we can do this through language, through how we describe our work and the language we use to promote it. I'm not quite sure how this would work yet, it's just a vague idea, but what I envisage is a situation where when someone is informed that an artwork is due to be installed somewhere, the first thing they think would be positive instead of negative. So it's about removing or changing the negative connotations of art. That it's a waste of money, it's pretentious, you won't understand it, etc. I've started thinking about the idea that art is a lie. Not just in the sense that it is reproductions, simulations and images of things that may or may not be true, but in the sense that we are being lied to about art and artists, and the art market is based on an exaggerated image of what an artist is. We've become entrenched in a celebrity-based culture where a lot of cultural worth is given to fame. There are now multi-billion-pound worldwide industries propped up by fame. These industries require sustaining. So we have force-fed celebrities as role models, people you should aspire to be like and people you should want to see. I think this is not necessarily the celebrity's fault, although some are generally guilty of self-aggrandizement. It's a result of a spiralling business and greed. Celebrity artists are used in a similar fashion. There is an art market which relies upon big names. Art stars are created and pushed. Mythologies are built up around them. Sometimes they build them up themselves.